Speaking of which, I'm dog sitting for Raj. Dude has a bidet, but
Yes.
his toilet care stops at the rim of the bowl, man. It is a cesspool in there. I should have taken a photo. It is disgusting.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane...
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we ask, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, and this is the podcast for you, I'm your host, Gene Lyons, and alongside you is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And tonight's special guest, a repeat guest on the podcast, Cole Picock.
Guys, last we talked, I told you I'd be back.
You did. You're a man of your word.
Good to be here.
And the three of us tonight are going to be taking a look back in time and deciding if our favorite films still hold up. Each week, the audience selects from 6 movie choices that we break out in the race car VHS tape rewinder and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes. At the end of the podcast, the three of us will provide the audience with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off our respective bums. So find a comfortable spot on the sofa and accompany us for a journey through our vast VHS movie collections. And if you're joining us from Westworld, which we just wrapped up, welcome. We're glad to have you. We hope that Shat the Movies lives up to the hype, but we are really excited to get back to what I think we do best, which is just kicking back with some old-ass movies and being old-ass men.
Yes, and I really want to thank Cole for coming back. This week, I was trying to pack, and I said, we got to get an episode in here. Roger, I think he's in Denver. Carrie's working 2 straight weeks. So I said, let's just throw a Hail Mary, and thank God Cole came through.
Yeah, so excited to have you back, Cole. Excited to be back, and really excited about this week's movie choice. Big D, what was the category?
So the category, and this was so long ago that I posted this, was robot movies. We had a total of 1,300 votes. In last place with 1.4% was Cyborg. Next, taking up the rear, batteries not included, The Iron Giant, Short Circuit, RoboCop, and the winner in a landslide. I think out of 6 movies, it got 47% of the vote. So this is, I think, our biggest one-sided victory for 1984's Terminator.
And I believe this is the first time we've done 2 movies in the same franchise. So it's a testament to how strong this franchise is. And honestly, anything with Schwarzenegger, eventually we're going to have to do. All right, Terminator is a 1984 American science fiction action film directed by James Cameron. It stars Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, a cyborg assassin sent back in time from 2029 to 1984 to kill Sarah Connor, played by Linda Hamilton, whose son will one day become a savior against the machines in a post-apocalyptic future. Michael Biehn plays Kyle Reese, a soldier from the future sent back in time to protect Connor. Terminator topped the U.S. box office for 2 weeks and helped launch Cameron's film career and solidify Schwarzenegger's. It received critical acclaim, with many praising its pacing, action scenes, and Schwarzenegger's performance. And the success, of course, led to a franchise with 4 sequels: Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, Terminator Salvation, and Terminator Genesis, a TV series, comic books, novels, and video games. So needless to say, this is a landmark American science fiction film, and there's a lot of lore that goes along with it.
Yeah, and I didn't know a lot of it before, researching for today's cast, and I'm glad I did. So Cameron came up with the idea. He was filming Piranha 2 in Rome, and he got a really bad case of food poisoning. So he was having fever dreams, and he had a specific dream about a mechanical skeleton that was dragging itself through explosions. It had kitchen knives in its hand, and it was trying to get to him and kill him. So this stuck with Cameron enough that he got back, started writing what would become the script for Terminator. And you think this is all going to be a great story. And I never knew that even though the Terminator franchise is a multi-billion-dollar franchise, like all the things that you listed, do you know that Cameron, because he was a no-name when he was filming Piranha 2, nobody wanted to touch him, he agreed to sell the rights to Terminator to Gale Ann Hurd for $1, with the stipulation that he could direct it and couldn't be fired. So other than the directing fee that he got for T2 and the direction fee that he got for this one, he didn't make anything off of all of the Terminator movies.
Yeah, I mean, it really was a perfect storm that had to come together just right. And it's one of those movies that an entire franchise was sparked off of a single idea. And I think what really made this movie, again, and the series really, was Linda Hamilton playing Sarah Connor. And of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger, unbelievable as a Terminator. I don't think anybody else could have played that role.
No, and the cool thing for anybody who's a Terminator fan, in 2019, the rights revert back to Cameron. So Cameron has purposely stayed away from the franchise. Next year, he gets it back. He's already in pre-production. He's writing for a Terminator reboot, which, from what I've read, will be the third installation. Almost like anything after Judgment Day didn't happen. So Cameron back at the helm, something you got to be excited for.
Well, hopefully he won't cast any of the people who were originally slated to play the Terminator. I think that's an illustrious list that involves Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson, and interestingly enough, O.J. Simpson, who Cameron said was not right as a Terminator because he didn't feel he was believable as a killer.
Even though Cameron was correct for not casting O.J. Simpson, there was also some other controversies with the movie. After it came out, there was a writer, Harlan Ellison, who sued the studio, Orion and Cameron, alleging that he stole the idea from 2 episodes of the 1960 sci-fi series, The Outer Limits, about a future warrior battling the past in an episode called Soldier, and that the Terminator skeleton looks a lot like the robot he designed for an episode called Demons with the Glass Hands. There had to have been enough there that Orion settled out of court with him. And if you watch any of the copies or the prints that were released after that, they give acknowledgement to the work right after the title card. So there is a little question whether that fevered food poisoning story holds up. There may have been a little plagiarism there.
I went back and looked at these episodes of The Outer Limits, and I got to say that neither Soldier nor Demon with the Glass Hand seems in any way related to Terminator. There's a guy and he's got a hand that looks a lot like the cybernetic hand, but it's, glass. And also, how many other pieces of work had, robot hands in it? It seems a little strange to me. And again, also that vague relation of 2 future warriors like battling in the past. That's not that abnormal a plot line, or that specific plot line. I'm surprised that Orion did pay out on this one. But again, smart move, clears the controversy, lets the movie move on. And it's good to, to err on the side of caution. Beyond all that, Terminator has a lot of what we consider favorites here at Shat the Movies. It's got Bill Paxton, which is a hallmark of a Shat the Movies movie. It's got Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is a hallmark of a Shat the Movies movie, and it was released in 1984, which is a year that we keep dipping back to. And again, just to remember all the big movies that came out in 84, we had Beverly Hills Cop, Ghostbusters, Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, Gremlins, The Karate Kid, Police Academy, Footloose, Romancing the Stone, Purple Rain. I mean, this was a stacked year for movies.
Yep, without a doubt. We could have just done the podcast running down 1984. Screw the votes.
So going back to 84, Cole, let's take you back to, it was October 26th, 1984. The movie came out. Did you see it as it came out? Did you see it later as a kid? What was your first memory of Terminator?
Well, so you might be surprised to hear this, but I've never seen this movie. I was never a huge fan of the Terminator films. I was 5 years old when this movie came out, and I think Terminator 2 came out in 91, and I saw it sometime in the mid-90s, and I've always associated Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton to T2. And understandably so, all the iconic Arnold shots in the Terminator are from this 84 film. I just never went back to take the time to watch it. So this was actually my first time watching it. I have some interesting thoughts that I'll share with you guys later, but I didn't see this movie until literally about 1 week ago.
But you're not alone in that. I was surprised talking to my wife when I said we were doing the original Terminator. And she goes, "Oh, the one with the liquid guy?" I'm like, "No, not that one, the one before that." So I think there's probably a whole generation that grew up in the 90s that, unless you go back, you wouldn't even know. But when this came out, I was 11. So I had a difficult time sneaking into the theater, and I remember being tortured because I wanted to see it. And I've said before, I'm a huge fan of time travel movies. I love Time Rider, The Adventures of Lynn Swan. You got Back to the Future, Philadelphia Experiment, My Science Project, Final Countdown. This was right up there, and I just remember how much I had to suffer and wait for it to come out on HBO. But once it did, I probably watched it 4 or 5 times within that first month. So I loved it, and it was great to go back today and watch it in HD.
So did you really try to sneak into movie theaters when you were 11 years old?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Did you ever succeed?
Oh, multiple times.
By yourself?
Oh, it was a group of us, and you would just look for the usher to be somewhere else, and you would kind of sneak in. But if you have a group of 4 guys, somebody's running point and somebody's, the lookout. If one guy gets pinched, you got to decide, do we leave him or do we go in?
That's a conversation for another time, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot easier to sneak into a movie at 11 when you're already 6 feet tall. So that probably helps too. They're just like, oh, look at this fine gentleman going into the movies. For me, I didn't see this in theaters. I wish I had. My older cousins were obsessed with this movie. So I saw it many, many times on videotape. And I just remember the first time seeing it as a kid. So this came out when I was 4 years old. I think I saw it a few years after that. But I distinctly remember seeing it and going, this is way different from anything I'd seen before. There were concepts being thrown at me that I was just old enough to start processing, like time travel, like basically an Armageddon and a post-apocalyptic scenario. Like these are ideas that never even occurred to me as a kid. So this was a really big movie in shaping my worldview of both sci-fi and the potential for, if you remember at this time too, during the Cold War, like this was something that we felt was a very real possibility. I think this was really my first look at sort of nuclear holocaust and what could happen. It's a bit terrifying. All right, enough talk about Terminator. Let's get into the movie itself. Big D, roll that trailer.
In the 21st century, a weapon will be invented like no other. This weapon will be powerful, versatile, and indestructible. It can't be reasoned with. It can't be bargained with. It will feel no pity, no remorse, no pain, no fear. It will have only one purpose: to return to the present and prevent the future. This weapon will be called the Terminator.
You're dead, honey.
What day is it? The date!
12th May, Thursday.
What year?
I'm here to help you. I'm Reese, DN 38416, assigned to protect you. You've been targeted for termination.
Why does it want me? Why me?
Arnold Schwarzenegger is the Terminator. Your future is in its hands.
It's 1984 in Los Angeles, and a cyborg assassin known as a Terminator arrives from 2029 and steals guns and clothes. Shortly afterward, Kyle Reese, a human soldier from 2029, arrives. He steals clothes and evades the police. The Terminator begins systematically killing women named Sarah Connor, whose addresses it finds in the telephone directory. It tracks the last Sarah Connor to a nightclub, but Kyle rescues her. The pair steal a car and escape with the Terminator pursuing them in a police car.
So I'm curious here that, Cole said this is the first time that he's seen this, but he'd already seen Terminator 2. When you first were introduced to the characters, did you expect Arnold to be the good guy again, or was it kind of a surprise?
No, I think, quite frankly, it's been so long since I've seen T2. I related him as to be more of a villain. And as this movie went on, I continued to remind myself of the clips, maybe even the trailer that I've probably seen over the years. But it was more Linda Hamilton's hair that I got lost in, and many other things throughout the movie that we'll get into. But I found myself asking more questions than anything as the movie went on.
Yeah, the technology and the styles definitely date the movie, but one thing that does not get dated is Arnold's body.
Yeah, he was an absolute specimen at this point and perfectly cast for the role. Looking at him, he doesn't look human. Like he shows up his first scene, he is naked. And he stands up and you get that great rear shot of him kind of looking over LA. And that waist to shoulder ratio is out of control. He's perfectly sculpted. And just the body on the guy again, I just try to take myself back to 1984. This is before bodybuilding had really hit stride as a mainstream sport. You did not see people of that size at the time. And even now it's impressive. But back then, I can't imagine what people thought of this, seeing this guy on the screen. Really, he looks inhuman. It is very believable without a shred of special effects at this point to believe that he is, something other than a normal human warrior.
Well, have either of you guys seen Terminator Salvation?
No.
Okay, so in that movie, spoiler alert, at the end, there's a full CGI version of young Arnold. And I remember watching it and thinking, oh, this is so bad. You can see he looks synthetic. It doesn't look real. No, that's what real Arnold looked like in this movie. It is a true to life. Arnold doesn't look human. There's parts where you know it's him, but I'm questioning, is this a prosthetic?
Yeah, I just like that they spent all the effects budget on Arnold Schwarzenegger. So he shows up, there's lightning, there's like smoke and all that stuff. And then when Kyle Reese shows up, it's just like, it's a naked guy in an alley. Like they spent no effort trying to make his entrance look cool.
No, talk about naked. This is the first time I've seen this in HD. I was a little surprised there to see the little Terminator penis. I didn't remember seeing Arnold full frontal.
You thought that was little?
I didn't think it was little, but I was just kind of surprised. I can picture Arnold being like, I do not want a merkin. No merkin.
But I mean, again, and we get a full dose of all the effects they're going to show us in this movie pretty early on. I was very impressed by the future war scenes with the hunter killers moving around, the big lasers and all that stuff. The lasers look great. And again, remember, this is 84. So we had movies that came out well after this that had far less believable effects. I think Ghostbusters was in the same year. I thought those effects did not hold up the way this did. And I'll keep going back to The Last Starfighter, which had absolutely horrible effects compared to this. Was a pretty scary, like fairly believable battlefield.
Yeah, I think it's amazing how they were able to replicate the flying hunter killers look pretty good, the tracked ones, and the iconic rolling of the treads over the skulls. I understand that there's been a nuclear holocaust. It's Armageddon. But why are there just skulls strewn upon the ground? Were the Terminators trying to intimidate the survivors?
So let me go back to the aerial, whatever was flying in the air. You thought that looked good?
Dude, this is 1984.
I appreciate that. But
did you see the Walkman the girl was wearing when she was having sex with her boyfriend?
The one that she wore all throughout the house?
Yes. Compare that. That was technology.
I understand this. The skulls didn't bother me. The tank didn't bother me. There was too much of these flying aircrafts that looked like shit. And I go back to it's 1984, but...
Okay, I would like to propose that we judge the special effects in relation to the quality of the music, right? So in 84, that Casio alley, like the chase music, the ding, 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 ding. And it seemed like somebody was just hitting orchestra hits over and over again. It was like Keyboard Cat. Keyboard Cat did the soundtrack of this movie. That was way more distracting than anything flying in the air.
But the amazing thing is you juxtapose that terrible... It sounded like they were smashing string instruments at some part, like and the techno. But then you have that iconic theme song. Without that iconic doom 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 and the metallic clanging, without that music, I don't think the movie's the same. Every iconic movie we've done has that song that you can just remember it. You hear 2 or 3 bars and you know what it is.
So you're telling me that if somebody said, recite for me the music to the movie The Terminator, you could do that?
Oh
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, not my franchise, I guess. I don't associate a specific theme song. Maybe I missed the boat on that one.
Yeah, if I went...
I'd lose that game.
Well, that's why you haven't seen this movie before.
But going back to familiar things, Bill Paxton. He shows up early in this movie. I'd forgotten he was in this. And it seems like, people have said that this is the Bill Paxton podcast. Again, I liked him in this too. He's like the most likable street thug I've ever seen. Although I want to point out that all 3 of those movies in general, they always use switchblades the wrong way. Switchblade is a weapon of surprise. It's supposed to be you don't see it and then it's there. But in every single movie, the guy takes it out, flicks it to intimidate, and in this case, stabs it ineffectively into a robot.
So why doesn't the Terminator use that heart-ripping technique If we were out there and we tried to shank somebody and the dude ripped out Cole's heart, I love you, Cole, but I'm leaving. I'm leaving without a doubt. And Bill Paxton, is there a movie that he's not in?
I think he was in Flashdance.
I bet now if we pulled it up, he'd be an extra in the back or someone in like the chorus line.
All right, so we talked about all the guys in the movie. Let's talk about some of the ladies in the movie. So Linda Hamilton, as you mentioned, Cole, hair looking amazing. She starts off the movie as a lowly waitress, and again, this is one of the first indications that we're watching an '80s movie. It's like the '80s restaurant scene where it's kind of a little slapsticky. Things are going wrong. Everybody's like acting like cool '80s people. And we just get a look at how shitty her life is, and that's our first introduction to this epic character who we then follow through the series with.
But I think it should be mandatory that everyone waits tables at some point in their life. Everyone should work in the service industry to have some respect for what they go through. Have either of you ever worked in a restaurant?
I have not, but I couldn't agree with you more, Big D. I think that it's life lessons, whether it's 1 week or 1 year when you spend in a diner, and especially that atmosphere. And it was all within about a 10-second scene. She's getting yelled at from different people. The part that bothered me the most, and it literally, I turned around, I rewound it, I watched it again, was that little bastard child who put the scoop of sherbet ice cream in her apron pocket. And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I just sat there and went, first of all, sherbet ice cream. I did like that part. Who sees sherbet ice cream anymore? But what a little bastard. Like, where are his parents?
And did you catch what the parents said? The kid was like, you should get the tip.
Fucking asshole parents.
No, I missed that.
Yeah, and Sarah just looks like she's like, fuck, I've had enough today. I don't need this kid. That's the point where I walk out. That's it. I quit.
But that wasn't an easy look to achieve. That's the crazy thing about the 80s. And I go back to Playboy. Like when I was a kid looking at like a Playboy in the 80s, and I was like, even then I knew, I was like, these women are supposed to be glamorous and beautiful, but this is the 80s. They were like going for the worst possible look.
I don't think it was just the ladies. If you look at that club Tech Noir, everyone looked a bit bizarre. And the girls, they take their time. They're in the bathroom for maybe an hour and a half getting ready. And it just made me think, they look great. They're put together, and that bathroom is disgusting. Why do a lot of women spend the time to get themselves looking nice, and then you'll see them take a selfie, and there's panties on the floor, the room is a mess. There's 80 kinds of lotion and hairspray all over. Clean up, ladies.
This is probably where you need Carrie's perspective, but this was my take on it. And we're talking about the scene where they're getting ready in their bathroom, correct? Not at the club, right? So first of all, the Jetsons t-shirt was introduced very briefly, which I thought was fantastic. I love the Jetsons. Have no clue if they had to pay for that, but it was very prominent in the scene. But did you catch the bottle of Muscle Rub that was on the counter? It was very prominent. Muscle Rub, 2 girls living there. I want to know what females are doing with Muscle Rub.
Well, clearly Sarah's roommate is the best because I'm watching it and like she like screws this guy and then gets up and goes and makes him a sandwich and a glass of milk and some celery. Right. Like that's the kind of woman that has Muscle Rub because she's taking care of her man.
wait. Why do you think she was making the sandwich for him? She was making that for herself.
No, she made a big plate of sandwiches. I think there was multiple sandwiches.
Well, a guy who can talk like that over the phone deserves a good cup of milk and a sandwich whenever he wants it.
Okay, but as a guy, if you were being romantic with a lady and she chose to put on headphones so she didn't have to hear you and was jamming out, would you still go to town or would you feel a little hurt?
Maybe it was Mike's band, like on the tape, like she was just listening to him to get to hot there. But as far as the bathroom goes, look, I don't know if you guys have been in this scenario, but I have gone home with women and discovered their bathrooms, and I was just like, what? There's like mascara and eyeliner all over the sink. There's just, like nasty, like the toilet's gross. Speaking of which, I'm dog sitting for Raj. Dude has a bidet, but yes. his toilet care stops at the rim of the bowl, man. It is a cesspool in there. I should have taken a photo. It is disgusting.
Yeah, and he's always the one talking about using his iPad on the toilet. If you took out a black light, that thing would look like a Jackson Pollock painting.
As they hide in a parking lot, Kyle explains to Sarah that an artificial intelligence defense network known as Skynet will become self-aware in the near future and initiate a nuclear holocaust. Sarah's future son, John, will rally the survivors and lead a resistance movement against Skynet, and its army of machines. With the resistance on the verge of victory, Skynet set a Terminator back in time to kill Sarah before John is born to prevent the formation of the resistance. The Terminator is an efficient killing machine with a powerful metal endoskeleton and an external layer of living tissue that makes it appear human.
So Reese is trying to convince both Sarah and us as the audience about the power of the Terminators, about the future and the destruction. And I love the scene, effective storytelling, when Reese is sitting in the car next to the construction site. He's starting to doze and he's watching all of the construction equipment go by and the lights and the tracks, and it bleeds into his story where he remembers the battles and running around the battlefield. And I think within that few minutes of exposition, I believe, and the rest of the audience should believe, that he is a capable soldier and that the future and the Terminators is something to be feared.
Right. It looked believable. I think what was great about this movie is that they did so much with so little, in the sense that that was a very brief scene of going to the future, and nothing that they did was that, sophisticated. I mean, this certainly isn't Star Wars level of effects, right? You have these like little plasma canisters that you throw that explode. You got some tracks. Most of the stuff, much like Aliens, just looked like it was fairly current. And again, it's not that far in the future. So I thought they did a good job of that. And again, by the time he snapped out of that daydream or that nap, I guess, I knew what the world of the future looked like. I knew what his mission was. Everything made sense, and it was very, very efficient, very tight.
My only problem with their vision of the future is, and again, maybe we're talking because this is 35 years later, I don't think the future, if I was going to design a killing, hunting robot, would be these large tanks and flying armored. I'm picturing more something the size of like a hummingbird. If you have 1,000, if you have autonomous robots that could swarm and kill with like a lethal injection, to me, that's more terrifying. I think that's the future we're heading towards.
Yeah, I was ready to move on to the next scene. It didn't do much for me.
Okay.
Also,
call me shallow, but
it'd also be a very different movie. Like if it was, oh no, the stabby hummingbirds are coming. Look out.
Okay, fuck you both. Watch Black Mirror. There's a good one where bees are the killers. So yes, it's good. But talking about killers, Arnold, you said he didn't look human. He embodies that cyborg, that his head movements, and we know that he had taken a lot of inspiration from Yul Brynner in Westworld with the trick he does with his eyes and his deliberate movement. There's no motion that's wasted. He also tried to replicate a shark, how a shark will lead with his eyes and then the head turns. When he's driving that police car, I know you don't like it, Cole, but he looked intimidating. He looked like a predator stalking his prey.
I agree that he looked intimidating at points of the film, but I don't believe that in Arnold's head any of it was intentional. I think it was all accidental, the looks that he might have gave. I don't think he wasn't quite the governor in 1984. I don't think he had the intelligence to go, channel your inner cyborg, Arnold. I think he just drove the fucking car and happened to catch him at a few good looks.
Speaking of driving the cars, I didn't realize until I went back and watched this movie how much of it was spent in cars and how many chase scenes you had. And all the cars in the 80s seem to have some really, really standard features. One of them is that all tires must smoke while you're driving them. And these chase scenes were fun, but it looked like they were just really difficult to steer these cars. Everybody was overcorrecting their turns. I felt like the chase scenes in T2 were a lot better than this. And also, can you just hotwire any car in the 80s?
I've never hotwired a car. Cole, you're from Chicago. Is this something that you did in your youth?
I can't say I've partaken, but I did notice that there were probably, 2 or 3 cars hotwired, all a little bit different, and I thought it looked way too easy.
Yeah, if you just hit like the key, the ignition cylinder with the buttstock of your shotgun, it comes apart and then you just turn the car on. So also, besides being able to hotwire a car, why the fuck does no one in this movie just turn on their headlights? Why doesn't Michael Biehn turn his headlights on? Then the police aren't going to pull you over.
Well, you clearly see the car that they're driving in 2029 doesn't have functioning headlights. So, and by the way, his driving in 2029, like that guy on the turret was fucked. There's no way he's hitting anything. That guy was getting tossed around like a rag doll. But you really can't fault the actor on that. Michael Biehn, I thought, was really great in this, and I didn't recognize him immediately. But then I realized this is the guy who was he was one of the Space Marines and Aliens, kind of one of the heroes there. And then I didn't know this, but Johnny Ringo in Tombstone, he's like one of my favorite movie characters of all time, and he looks so different, and he's so terrific in different ways in both of these movies. Everyone talks about Schwarzenegger and Hamilton in this movie, but really, I think Michael Biehn is the underrated hero.
I agree. And his role as Johnny Ringo was just stellar. And he looks so much younger in this film. But let me ask you this, Gene, Big D, Michael Biehn in this movie, how would you rate him overall? Did you, his character, was he a badass? Was he a good guy? Did he mean well? How would you rate him?
I think he was a ragtag rebel fighter. It was believable. He wasn't going to be this intimidating character. He was going to be more scrappy and street smart.
So you wouldn't quite say warrior?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't a trained soldier. He's he's going to do what it takes. He didn't have any formal training.
Isn't this when we learned his name was Kyle? When Sarah asks him, "What's your first name?" Is it just Reese? What's your first name? And he goes, Kyle. What fucking warrior is named Kyle?
Well, I mean, it makes sense when you think about it. Okay, so kids it was obviously influential because every kid that I went to school with was named either Kyle or Reese. So this movie made an impact.
Well, also you might want to. Well, Chris Kyle, the Navy SEAL, the American sniper. Kyle was his last name, but
yeah, I'm not going to give it to you.
Okay.
All right. So Kyle and Sarah are apprehended by police after another encounter with the Terminator, and criminal psychologist Dr. Silberman concludes that Kyle is paranoid and delusional. The Terminator repairs its body and attacks a police station, killing many police officers in its attempt to locate Sarah. Kyle and Sarah escape, steal another car, and take refuge in a motel where they assemble pipe bombs and plan their next move. Kyle admits that he has been in love with Sarah since John gave him a photograph of her, and they have sex.
So I have to admit it that this scene of making the pipe bombs, this is something that stuck with me as a kid. I liked explosives. I liked making things explode, burning things. I think that eventually led to me joining the military. So those scenes of making explosives really hit home and really made me have some great memories of my youth blowing stuff up with illegal fireworks.
So were they pipe bombs or were they what I took as smoke bombs in this movie?
No. I would take like M80s and I would pack them into what I could get at that point, like some PVC. But no, it wasn't smoke bombs.
I mean, there were points in time, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, and I'll get us back on track. But these were smoke bombs. I mean, I was waiting for him to toss out some poppers and ladyfingers out the window at a couple points, too. It was a little bit like, okay.
Well, the effects couldn't be spectacular at all times. I mean, I would counter that, maybe the bombs didn't look that great, but the scene where Arnold's repairing himself, pretty advanced for the time.
Oh, I think the special effects look great. I don't know why. That scene you're talking about where he goes into the motel, which I guess it's his flop house. He's been there before. He's got some tools set up. He's rented the room. They clearly use a prosthetic head for Arnold to take out the X-Acto knife and to cut his eye out. I don't know why they bothered to do that, because at the end of the movie, we see Arnold with the prosthetic eye. It looks much more believable.
So you picked up on it, that it was a prosthetic?
What, the twitching rubber head? Yes, I saw it.
I just wasn't sure where this was going, if you thought maybe that was all really shot and he took his own eye out.
No, but I'm telling you, okay, as a kid, that scarred me. That him taking the X-Acto knife out and him slicing his arm, and it's like Hostel. When you watch Hostel, it's that dirty, like, medical instrument and the blood dripping into the sink. Yeah, that traumatized 11-year-old me.
I thought the arm was well shot. When they got to the eye in the mirror, I thought this transitioned into a Halloween film. I mean, I don't know if the same guy that did all the Michael Myers movies maybe did the makeup and all that, but I mean, all I looked at is his prosthetic head and went, oh, that's Michael Myers in the mirror.
I'm kind of curious as to why he even took the time to fix himself, though, because if you go back to the scene that messed him up in the first place, where he gets shot and he crashes the car, you are a robot that is essentially impervious to any weapon of the current day. Bullets aren't really going to hurt you. You can take on 5 or 6 cops at the same time. You've got your prey, your target is sitting in a car that just crashed. This is your time to just end it all. The movie could have been over at about 40 minutes.
There's multiple times that if this programmed killer was actually dedicated and deliberate to his mission, he would have killed her. If he wasn't standing over Sarah in the club, gloating as he's got the laser sight on her head and pulled the trigger, she's dead. In this, the Terminator crashes the Cadillac into the wall. Reese and Sarah's car flips over. It's right next to him. And the police show up, and that scares the Terminator off. He just runs away. You could have killed 5 of the cops, shot Sarah in the car, movie's over.
Yeah, the only thing I could figure is that maybe his arm and eye were so badly damaged that he felt he couldn't get an accurate shot. I'm trying here, but moving from that scene to the scene that comes immediately after, the police department, I thought that was again, that entire sequence at the police department. One, it's really a touch point for some of the sequels that came after, and you saw similar scenes from that. They really established the way Terminator movies are going to go down from now on. And I thought that, aside from Arnold Schwarzenegger, the actual interactions between people at the police department was really interesting to watch. I thought the interrogation, again, we talked about the efficiency of the plot moving along. The interrogation of Michael Biehn as Kyle Reese worked really well. He was entertaining. It was exciting as he explained. And what I loved is that in movies like this, I thought it was going to be that same thing we always get, where it's like that tight-lipped mystery man who's like, no, you're like, why don't you just tell them? And they're like, well, they just don't say anything. They say, no, he's not stoic about it at all. He's very passionate about it. And he tells them all about his world, where he's from, what he's trying to do. I thought that it kept the movie exciting. And when he looks right at the camera and he's trying to send that message to Sarah Connor, I thought it was powerful.
Yeah, I think that police scene has to be a top 10 action sequence of all time. It's up there. It's iconic. You remember it. But as a kid, at 11 years old, there's certain places that you take as sacred, that you think you'd be safe. So as a kid, you think if you're in the police station, you're going to be okay. So as a young kid, seeing this killing machine go into the police station, granted, they weren't the most highly trained police officers. They're just running out into the middle of the hallway, getting shot. But it was upsetting as a kid. I remember being a fan of Friday the 13th. And I used to be like, okay, Jason, he's scary, but I'm a kid. I'm one of the campers. If he found me, I could hide under my bed. He'd let me live. When I turned 18 and I realized that I was one of the counselors, that's when it becomes terrifying. As a kid, watching him slaughter all those cops, I thought it had a visceral effect with me and kind of scared me and said, nothing's safe.
I mean, the only thing missing was him lighting up a cigarette at the end of it, because if you need a smoke in the 80s, apparently you go to a police station, because every damn cop and detective was smoking during the interrogation. But I kind of liked it. It just made me think, God, you never see that anymore in movies.
Besides the action being iconic, this established Schwarzenegger and where he's got to have a catchphrase. There's a term for it. In this one, it seems like he's got 2 or 3 of them. The "come with me if you want to live," which wasn't him, but it's an iconic line where it's used later on in the other in the sequels and the prequel to this. But the "hey buddy, you got a dead cat in there," great line. The "fuck you asshole," that's a great one. Or the "I'll be back." It then was in T2, Commando, The Running Man, Twins, Total Recall, and Last Action Hero. Great Schwarzenegger lines and memorable.
You took "hey buddy, you got a dead cat in there," or what, as an iconic line out of this?
You didn't remember it? Where that guy is outside the room and he's like, hey, he's in that hotel and he says, hey, you got a dead cat in there? And Arnold runs through all the things he could say, like, yes, no, go away, maybe, yes, come back later, fuck, or that "fuck you asshole." Yes, I remembered that.
Okay. All right.
If you want to talk about awkward lines, though, we can't go through the Terminator without talking about the elephant in the room, which is the sex scene. That might be one of the weirdest exchanges in a romantic scene. I guess romantic is what we'll call it. I've ever seen.
It all happened so quick. I don't think I was ready for it. And hey, I like a good sex scene almost as much as Raj, right? But the way this fast forwarded to the end with the slow-mo of the clasping hands to end in the sex montage, I found myself laughing out loud. I mean, it was rather comical in my opinion.
Okay, keep in mind, this is the man who later directs Titanic and some other good romantic films, so he was a rookie at this point. But I kept thinking back to Jenny and Forrest when they're in college with Jenny, and Jenny starts rubbing his shoulders. He's like, oh, I think I ruined your bathrobe. I felt like that. Kyle says, I've been fighting a war here. I've never been with a woman. Sarah senses blood, and she says, so there's no girl in your time? Never? Okay, let's have sex. It just happens, and then he professes his love. If some crazy homeless-looking dude who says he came through time says, I've come through time for you, Sarah, I've loved you forever, and then you're making love and just really clasping hands?
Listen, I believe a guy named Kyle is an adult who said, I've never been with a woman, but not this guy. I mean, I had troubles enough with his name.
All right, so two things. One is what she actually says to him, which I like even more, is it's very casual and chatty. She's like, "What are girls like where you're from?" Which is even weirder because it's like it's not like he's like from Nebraska. He's from 2029. And then secondly, at first I was scoffing at it, but then I started thinking deeper about it, and it's something I didn't notice before. But let's really think about Sarah. James Cameron has told us all we need to know about why this makes sense throughout the movie. Again, and this is why it's a really good movie. Sarah, we've seen what? She's lonely. She has no purpose. Her job sucks. She sucks at her job. Guys stand her up. Her hair's atrocious. She's got nothing going on. And then Kyle Reese comes, and this whole Terminator saga comes along, and now she has purpose and she has meaning. And it's this beautiful story of how the everyman, this nobody from, the gutters of LA is suddenly has this great destiny. And this common person can birth the savior that saves the entire race. So yeah, of course she's going to fuck him.
For God's sakes, her vehicle of choice is a Honda Elite scooter. She's not doing too well. So maybe Reese is a step up. I agree.
Yeah, you're saying crazily homeless guy from the future is a downgrade. It's the only guy she can get.
This is the first guy who actually showed up at the Tiki Motel when he told her he'd be there.
Side note, Carrie and I actually do go to a night called Tech Noir, so that's even weirder. But I digress. But okay, so the Terminator then kills Sarah's mom as if her life couldn't get any worse, and then impersonates her mom when Sarah, unaware of the Terminator's ability to mimic voices, attempts to contact her via telephone. When they realize the Terminator has reacquired them, Sarah and Kyle escape in a pickup truck while the Terminator chases them on a motorcycle. In the ensuing chase, Kyle is wounded by gunfire while throwing pipe bombs at the Terminator. Enraged, Sarah knocks the Terminator off its motorcycle but loses control of the truck, which flips over. The Terminator hijacks a tank truck and attempts to run down Sarah, but Kyle slides a pipe bomb onto the tanker, causing an explosion that burns the flesh from the Terminator's endoskeleton.
God damn it, Sarah. There's one fucking rule. Don't tell anyone where you are. That's all Kyle said. Don't tell anyone where you are. And she's got to fucking tell her mother. Does she want to die?
Did we see her mother in that shot?
No, but I imagine her mother looking like the first Sarah Connor that opened the door.
I don't know
the
why.
one that got shot. She looked like a Marge or like a Patty.
I mean, you knew it was coming. You knew it was going to be the Terminator, but I was pissed. I wanted to see a dead body in that room.
Did you guys think at this point, had you had enough car chases? Were you into the car chases? Again, Terminator 2, I loved every chase in that movie. T1, at this point, I'm like, oh, okay, I think they're running out of their car chase quota.
Again, Terminator, you're a robot. You're trying to kill Sarah. Sarah's in a car that's crashed. She flipped it over. The Terminator decides this is a great time to not cross the road and shoot her in the head. He's going to hijack a truck, then turn around, come try to chase Sarah down like a 30-foot hill, which she somehow outruns him. He could have just crossed the street and just choked her out.
Yeah, it's also curious that he chose a motorcycle, although he rides it in a really cool way. Like, I actually really enjoyed that as a motorcycle rider. I was like, oh, he's pretty good on that bike. But I was kind of curious about Kyle's way to attack a motorcycle. Now, again, being a motorcyclist, I know that if I just got a flat in my front tire, I'd be fucked. And this guy is throwing pipe bombs with a fuse, like old-timey cartoon bombs. I can't even imagine how hard it would be out of a moving vehicle to light the pipe bomb, throw it into the road, and hit a motorcycle that's moving at a high speed. I'm surprised that Kyle chose this method, but at least the movie was realistic about the fact that he couldn't hit shit.
No, I think the pipe bombs would have been effective.
You mean smoke bombs?
Yeah, all you need is one or two pieces of shrapnel to hit the tire, the tank, something to take him down. But fuck that. There's probably 15 people killed in the nightclub alone. How many innocent people got killed? Families driving that tunnel got murdered by those pipe bombs.
Smoke bombs?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, when Skynet goes active, they all die anyways. I mean, who cares?
That's true.
Later.
Yeah.
One interesting thing is that we keep talking about this movie from the perspective of being a sci-fi movie. And if you ask me what genre is the Terminator, I'd say it's sci-fi. But a lot of the movie, now watching it, I realize that it's a very much an 80s horror flick. A lot like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. You have this unstoppable predator, like Jason or like Freddy, who attacks soft targets in their homes. A lot of one-on-one killings. I mean, I felt like that scene where Sarah's roommate and the boyfriend got killed. It felt right out of Nightmare on Elm Street, right? So complete with a guy getting tossed around in his underwear. But what was great about that is it kept the effects practical and made the movie feel more real. And you felt that the Terminator was almost personal about these killings. I thought that it was really effective. When the movie goes into this more epic scale, when it's these big chases and the big effects, it's not the strongest point of the movie to me.
No, but I think the second half is a horror film. It's more being stalked. And I think they really keep the tension up. That slow motion where when the Terminator shows up and he's about to kill you, and it kind of, the sound slows down, and it's what I imagine it would be like being stalked. And I thought for the budget they had, it was an effective way to ratchet up the tension.
All right, so speaking of stalking, the Terminator pursues them to a factory where Kyle activates machinery to confuse the Terminator. He jams his final pipe bomb into the Terminator's abdomen, blowing the Terminator apart, injuring Sarah and killing himself. The Terminator's still functional torso reactivates and grabs Sarah. She breaks free and lures it into a hydraulic press, crushing it. Months later, a pregnant Sarah is traveling through Mexico, recording audio tapes to pass on to her unborn son, John. She debates whether to tell him that Kyle is his father. At a gas station, a boy takes a Polaroid photograph of her, which she purchases, the same photograph that John will eventually give to Kyle.
So you were questioning why the Terminator was so concerned about, fixing his appearance. At this point, when the flesh is all burned off, if Sarah had just survived the night, wouldn't she have been okay? What would the Terminator have done? He couldn't walk around. He couldn't blend in. Would the military have captured him? What would have happened?
Yeah, I mean, he'd be kind of screwed. But again, I mean, how is she going to get away from him? I mean, I know he's just a crawling torso, but she's pretty badly wounded too. Again, I feel like the movie answers a lot of questions when you look at it a little bit deeper. She took that shrapnel to the leg, so she's not highly mobile herself. She had to end it then and there.
But what did you think here? I thought the prosthetics that they'd put on Arnold, where he was in between where you could see through his cheek, the eye was visible. I thought that looked dynamite. I thought it was great for 84. The stop motion of the skeleton. Listen, I know it doesn't look good, but for the time, the wonkiness to it, I thought made it work. I'm willing to give him a pass.
You're trying really hard here, and I appreciate that. But I mean, they were awful. Let's be real. They were awful looking.
Yeah, to me, that endoskeleton, it looked comical at times. It reminded me a lot of the Hellhounds and Ghostbusters. I thought the chrome looked pretty fantastic. But, again, we talked about how earlier in the movie, avoiding showing certain things allowed us to sort of imagine them. Like, imagine if they had shown Arnold's actual, arrival and tried to do like him coming through some portal or something like that. They were wise to avoid that at times. I thought the times when they really tried to reach a little too far with the effects didn't work. And again, the point of this podcast is not to make apologies for movies or to be, Terminator apologists. It's to ask or answer, does it hold up? And for me, there are certain parts where, again, impressive for the time, but if looking at it now as a viewer in 2018, I feel like it's pretty laughable. And it took me out of the movie. It was supposed to be a scary part of the movie. Instead, I was like, that's a goofy looking endoskeleton.
And Gene, that's exactly what it did to me is I just I fell out of the moment and I started to laugh a little bit. But I mean, the Star Wars films had been out. Did they not have some of this special effects? And maybe not to this degree. And I'm not trying to compare Star Wars and Terminator, but there were other movies that were trying to accomplish things like this. Were there not? They could have done it better?
Yeah, but you're thinking like Clash of the Titans, what they did with the Kraken. They were on a limited budget. And you guys forget. Look at the technology. Look at the Walkman. It was a different time. What they were doing was really pushing the limits. And for what they had a budget-wise, Gene looked it up today and said, what do you think had a bigger budget, this movie or The Last Starfighter? The Last Starfighter had twice the budget this movie did. To do what they could do on that budget with the technology available, I think it's iconic. Yes, it looks bad. And they only did it where you needed to see the skeleton coming down the hall. After that, they used just like a little puppeteer of the robot. And even though you knew what they were doing, it worked. It worked. And you have to hand wave a lot of this movie. I understand what you're saying, Cole. You've never seen it before, so it looks ridiculous to you. And you have to think, the paradoxes of time travel and how it wouldn't really work. Yes, you have to have some suspension of disbelief. But they really took the time to think through some things. And I noticed on this viewing that when they're first turning on all the machines in the machine shop, that Sarah hits the button that starts the compactor, the crusher. So later on in the scene, when she's walking through it, it explains why she knows what that button she can't see does. So there was some thought behind it.
I'll agree with you on that, Big D. And the concept of what the Terminator would look like, that endoskeleton in and of itself was impressive. And I think that if anything, we can say that what happened with those concepts going into Terminator 2, when we got to see that vision realized, that was really satisfying. We got to see what it was supposed to look like. And for me, I think what happened is I saw T2 and then I replaced all the original Terminator scenes with the T2 robots, right? So I remember T1 having, those robots in it. So going back and seeing that it wasn't exactly the same, I think that's just what threw me off. But yeah, when I was a kid, I thought it looked very real.
Yeah, this movie, I think, just had me asking way too many questions toward the end. And probably a lot of it had to do with the fact that this was the first time I had seen it. I'm trying to connect the dots to T2, which I've seen 10 years ago. But it was anything from, all right, Reese is obviously John Connor's father. The photograph that the Spanish kid takes and hands to her that Reese sees later on in 2029. I mean, I was trying to connect it all, and I wasn't there. So, Gene... Big D, I need some help with some of these answers here.
What? The Spanish kid?
The Spanish kid?
The Spanish kid.
He's Mexican.
The Mexican kid. That too.
Well, okay. So let me take a stab at least that question. Okay. So yeah, we got to get into this whole thing, and why not do it now? John Connor's dad. Okay. So a lot of people have said, how is it possible that a guy that came from the future went back to the past and impregnated a woman to make the guy who ordered him to go to the past, right? So it's called a predestination paradox or a causal loop, right? So this actually happens a lot in science fiction. And basically what it means is that if a time traveler goes to the past, then they had to have been in the past before. And I kept thinking, like, how is it possible? And the only solution I could come up with was that John Connor had a different dad the first time around, right? So some guy got Sarah Connor pregnant. She gave birth to John Connor. And then John Connor sends Kyle Reese back, who gets his mom pregnant to make a different John Connor. Now, I know that's not canon for the movie, but it's the only thing that really makes sense to me.
I told you, don't think too hard. A lot of this doesn't work. For somebody who did fertility treatment with their wife, if you wait 5 minutes, if he lasted 2 more pumps, the different sperms hitting the egg, it's a different John Connor. If they decide to hold hands 2 seconds longer in the Tiki Motel, it could be Joanne Connor. It doesn't work, but just let it go.
Did he know he was the father before he went back in time?
No, he didn't tell him that. He just gave him the picture. He got him all hot and bothered. That's like apocalyptic porn. If you're living in a wasteland and you have a picture of Linda Hamilton with that hair, you know that he touched himself many times to that photo.
Wait, Cole might have something here, though, because, okay, check it out. So Kyle is told that you've got to go back and protect my mom, make sure that I get born, right? If I was told to go back and ensure that a dude gets born, the last thing I'm going to do is impregnate his mom. What if she gives birth to the wrong John Connor, right? What if,
what a day.
And then I started thinking, holy shit, Reese knows John. John maybe Kyle knows his birth date. So then he goes, okay, I'm coming from the future. I know this guy was born 9 months after this date. I'm going to get laid. And that's why he was so excited about protecting her, right? He's going to go back. And then I started thinking, in a darker vein, if he's like, I've got to get her pregnant in this window, like, would he have raped Sarah if she didn't want to have sex?
Oh my God. Oh my God. So you're trying to say that whole, I've never been with anyone, that's sensitive, like flinching, was that an act?
What if John was like, listen, here's the thing. My mom told me that the guy who was my dad told her these very things. He said he memorized the speech, right?
Oh.
That he was supposed to tell her a very specific thing. It's creepier the more you think about it.
Oh.
I mean, he was trying to fuck up the future. I think he had an ulterior motive, and he had a thing for lion's manes, That
was actually the original title. It was Terminator, Fuck the Future.
Now it's starting to make sense. I appreciate this.
Right, but you had so that was the first question you had was about the pregnancy thing. What were the other ones?
Right. So all right. How many days did this transpire over? I mean, was this one day? Was this 24 hours? Was this multiple days? I mean, we're talking about the Terminator here, who's a cyborg and doesn't sleep. I don't think we saw Reese and Sarah sleep at all, did we?
Well, they didn't sleep that night.
Well, they slept together, but they didn't sleep. I mean, no. I know we don't need to see that in a film, but how many days did this last?
Okay, so the first day was the 12th of May. It was a Thursday. That's what they say in the movie. And then I believe it takes place over 2 nights. So this is the second evening.
I feel 48 hours, two humans versus a cyborg that's killing anything in its path. I mean, yeah, I get it. It's a movie. It's impressive. You can avoid that for 2 days, but this could have all happened in 24 hours.
Remember, the cyborg's best search tool is the phone book. So, like, he's not bad. He's like batting what, 300? I mean, he killed the first 2 Sarahs, like, whoops, and then oops.
No problems.
And also, how does he know that he didn't get the right Sarah the first time?
Oh, he doesn't. He's just going to continue down through the phone book. And he would have stopped when he killed Ginger. But Sarah calls and leaves the voicemail, so the Terminator knows that he didn't get the last Sarah. But if the Terminator thought he killed the right Sarah, would he expect, like, Marty McFly to disappear or to have something happen? If he killed the last one, what would he have done? Would he have just hung around L.A.? Or what would he have done?
Yeah, he'd run for governor.
Oh, Jesus.
Dun, 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 dun.
So the other question you had was about the photo?
Yeah, the Spanish/Mexican kid. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So the photo that Reese has been carrying around and has been using as pocket porn.
We saw it burn up. We
did see it burn up. Correct. Because that picture was taken on the 7th of November in 1984. So what?
But he died in 1984.
Did you watch the movie?
Okay. Once.
Sarah now survives the Terminator. She's pregnant. She's 7 months pregnant at this point by Reese, who was sent back by John. She's now in the Jeep. She's driving into the Mexican mountains where she's going to, train up. She's going to give birth to John. The little Mexican boy takes a picture for $4. She carries it. Then she later gives that to John. John survives, later gives it to Reese. Reese uses it as some pocket porn. He takes it back in time. Or he doesn't. It gets burned up.
Very enlightening. I appreciate it. You're clearing up a lot of my multiple questions watching this movie.
All right. With all the questions answered, I think it's time that we rate this movie. Again, if you haven't listened to Shat the movies before, we use the Shat meter, which goes a bit in reverse from the typical rating that you might be used to. A Shat score of 0 wipes is a perfectly clean, laser pinpointed 45 shot to the heart. 5 wipes is basically a messy X-Acto knife eye extraction. Let's start with you, Big D. What is your rating for The Terminator?
So more and more that I researched and looked into the making of the movie, did I have more respect for it. They ran out of money at the end. And there was a point, the scene where the Terminator walks across the street and he's going to kill the first Sarah Connor. That was James Cameron carrying a camera, Schwarzenegger dressing himself in his costume, and one other person. They'd run out of money. They were filming Renegade, guerrilla style, without permits in LA to get the shots done. To have that level of attention and to do it on such a shoestring budget, I think it's a brilliant sci-fi classic movie. It combines a strong storytelling. I think there's suspense. The action is memorable. The set pieces are great. And that allows me to forget the flaws. The only thing going back that I would change in this entire movie was that synth pop. It sounded like the outtakes of Tron. The chase scenes, not the main theme. If you change that to something more current or clean, the movie is a lot better. But if that's my only flaw, this is still 100 on Rotten Tomatoes, fresh. You can't question that. How many other movies are 100? For the money, it's iconic. It led to Terminator 2. It launched Schwarzenegger's career. And all that can leave me here is pining for Cameron to get the rights back to do a reboot. Because if he does something along the lines of this movie or T2, we're in for a treat. This is a half a wipe, very close to perfect, and I loved it.
All right, that's half a wipe from Big D, Dick Ebert, Cole.
So that rating must explain Big D's Twins t-shirt that he's wearing right now. You must have voted for the Governor as well. So I didn't quite have the same take. I'm giving this 2.5 wipes, and that's with a travel size baby wipe to go along with it. And so I just couldn't get into this. And probably because I've watched it so late in my life and don't have a context of watching this as a child. Looking at T2 as the movie that meant the most to the Terminator franchise to me and not giving the others a chance. But I will say this movie was so defining for so many of the producers, the directors, the actors. You have to give it something, but I'm going to be a little harsh here and go 2.5 wipes. You know, I get that it was the 80s. When I think of Schwarzenegger and Hamilton, I'm reminded of T2. I want to hear some Guns N' Roses, You Could Be Mine, and I want to move on.
All right, so Cole, you're coming in at 2.5 wipes. That's a perfect middle score. Big D, you're on the high end of the spectrum with half a wipe to get this movie off your ass. And I'm going to come in right around the same as you, Big D. If I'd never seen T2, I might call this a perfect 0 wipe movie. The action is terrific. I think the plot makes surprising sense for a movie that deals with time travel and robots and annihilation. The performances in the cast were outstanding. And again, when I think about, we've brought it up before, The Last Starfighter, which cost $15 million to make, and other movies of the same vintage, The Terminator, which only cost $6 million, I can't even believe that, $6 million to make this movie, clearly stands out at leagues beyond its peers. This movie was way ahead of its time. And again, it triggered an insane response. It has become a Hallmark movie and that massive franchise. That I'd come in again at half a wipe. So our scores combined make 3.5 wipes. Divided by 3 makes it 1.16, repeating as the chat score for The Terminator.
So this is movie number 73 for us. And with the 1.16, that ties it in the 16 spot with Coming to America and Raising Arizona. It is better than The Breakfast Club. It is worse than Seven and Rounders.
We're gonna get some emails about this one. Maybe some voicemails too.
I think it's gonna be some hate mail for Cole.
Bring it on from Kyle and all his friends.
All right. Speaking of fan responses, Big D, we have any voicemails this week?
We do. We have a couple voicemails, and we're going to play one a week. So here's our voicemail, and it's coming with some heat. You know, there's a little conspiracy talk going on here, and it's Mac from Chicago.
Hey, Shaq crew, this is Mac from Chicago, a longtime listener. Just got done listening to your Real Genius podcast, and it's funny, I am actually driving back through Wisconsin. As one of you put it, the Grapes of Wrath. Definitely looks like the scene here. Anyway, just got done listening to your Real Genius podcast. Pretty disappointed that he didn't win. And I actually really want to know why Big D took that off the board, because I actually believed it's 6 and he won, and you guys did want to review it. Anyway, that's beside the point, neither here nor there. I actually didn't listen to Real Genius because I do not care for any Val Kilmer movie other than Heat. And I just wanted to mention again that you brought up Blade Runner once again. Carrie, I was waiting for a little bit more of a backlash again, because every time that's brought up, you guys deserve to be scolded, and Carrie usually does that, so I thought I'd call here and scold you guys once again. Definitely looking forward to your Westworld Season 2 coming up here, doing a rewatch myself. Keep up the good work, guys. See ya.
Okay, so Mac, I'm going to come clean. I'm going to confess here, okay? You are 100% correct. You caught me. I did cheat the system. It's the one time I've done it. It was a real close race between Heat and Real Genius. We had just come off of Casino, and we were trying to take it easy on Carrie Gross, so she didn't know if she could do another 3-hour movie. So yes, I put my finger on the scale, and I was quickly scolded by Gene, who made me promise to never do it again. But you will get your wish. We are doing Heat. It has been commissioned.
I could not be more excited about this. Listen, guys, I am a stickler for the rules. I remember when I first visited Austria and I saw everybody following all the signs and queuing up in line correctly. And I was like, this is a place where I need to be. It drives me nuts when we bypass, when we call audibles. I go crazy. I want to follow the rules, be as democratic as possible. Now, ironically, the guy that dresses up as George Washington for U.S. soccer matches, the guy who is the champion of the little people, the guy who is the most liberal human being I've ever met, Roger Roper. He is the most dictatorial voice on this podcast. And if it was up to him, he would just pick the movies himself. He loves stacking the deck. I'm with you, though, Mac. I want to do Heat. The people asked for it. So what if it's 3 hours long? It's got one of the greatest shootout scenes in movie history. It's got Pacino and De Niro in the same movie, plus Val Kilmer actually doing something right. I thought Real Genius was not that great a movie, and I can't wait to do Heat.
Yeah, I remember when we had done the Twitter, it was the iTunes review contest, where you could submit a review and you could actually put in hashtag review a movie. We purposely did not let Roger Roper anywhere near the balloting because I knew he would cheat it. So all Roger had to do is I said, Roger, give me a random number, one between 71 to 75. Why? I said, because it's going to pick the movie. Why don't we just pick the movie? I said, because that's not how it worked. People submitted a movie because they wanted us to pick it random. So finally, when it came out that it was Braveheart, he's like, oh, it's terrible. We should have just done Labyrinth. So yes, I learned my lesson. Mac, I'm sorry. I'll never put my finger on the scale again. And I didn't since then. And if it ever happens that Roger does something, then I might question it.
So speaking of Labyrinth, Big D, we've had some people call in and write in and ask about that. I know Carrie is itching to do it. We watched the movie in the theater together. King B, Roger, Carrie, and I did, and I'm ready to go on it. Is that still in the works, or what's the story on Labyrinth?
Still in the works. We're trying to get three of us together to report a podcast here. I didn't see the movie. You guys were in Arizona and went. So if you guys want to record it and bring back the B, do it.
Oh God, with the B. No, I think I think we could do that one as a local recording and get that one out too. I know people have been asking about it. So Labyrinth, you heard it here, folks. It's on the way.
Yeah, and also we have to. We have one movie that's coming up next week that was per the vote. Then following that, we have two commissions that we got to do. One is Heat, and the one is The Mouth of Madness. So we'll get those going. We just wanted to get Terminator and the next week's movie, which is one of our hotly contested categories. And there was a lot to pick from. We had almost 1,800 votes, and it was Childhood Adventures. Up for consideration was Cloak and Dagger, Space Camp, Flight of the Navigator, Adventures in Babysitting, Stand By Me, and The Goonies. 1,800 votes. And we have a winner that we're going to be doing next week. So if you want to tune in to the end of the podcast, and we're going to play the trailer.
All right, that concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. On Facebook, search for Shat the Movies Podcast. The website is shatthemovies.com. You can email us with your movie suggestions or feedback at hosts@shatthemovies.com. If you'd like to call and leave us a voicemail, you can call 914-719-SHAT and leave your thoughts. They might appear on the podcast. To show your support for the podcast financially, venmo.com/ShatPodcast. And we're everywhere fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, be sure to leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow. Also, you can check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Game of Thrones, Taboo, and American Gods. You can find all that information on our website, shatontv.com. And if you are a Westworld listener, do not unsubscribe yet. We still have episodes coming, including the Westie Awards and an additional Mean Mail Telegraph edition. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert, Roger Roper, Carrie Gross, and Cole Pickok, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie.
Steven Spielberg presents The Goonies, a Richard Donner film.
Time, chump. Hey, Mike found the map. Whoa, do you guys realize what we could do? I don't want to go on any more of your crazy Goonie adventures.
Meet Mikey.
I gotta go to the bathroom.
Brand. Andy.
Shame. Come on, Brand. Slip with the tongue.
That's disgusting. No, I can't even look.
Mouse.
I gotcha. Now get out from behind her. You're ruining the painting. You're ruining my joke.
Stephanie. Data.
Booty banger. Ow. Guys, isn't that neat?
And Chunk.
It's locked. Big drinks, Chunk.
They call themselves the Goonies. They've stumbled onto a legend, but they're not alone.
Chunk, I hope that was your stomach.
No. That's the it. Sounds like Kong.
Discover what they uncover.
It was rubies and emeralds and diamonds.
The lost map.
Oh, this started the tunnel.
The secret caves.
Hey, Mikey! You can hear me! Run! Run! They're coming after you!
The hidden clues.
Mikey!
The treacherous traps.
Hello, Sheriff. I'm at the Lighthouse Lounge, and I want to report, well, a murder.
Just like that last prank about all those little creatures that multiply when you throw water on them.
Take the oath.
They're here! Somebody's coming!
Join the adventure as Steven Spielberg presents The Goonies, a Richard Donner film.